I drove 4 hours through the winding mountain roads to our family cabin in the Smokies, a new rifle case sitting in the passenger seat beside me. This was supposed to be our tradition, Columbus Day weekend, 3 generations of Sullivan men hunting together in the Tennessee wilderness, where I'd taught my son to track deer when he was 8 years old. I could still see him as that little boy, his eyes wide with wonder as he learned to read the forest. I wasn't supposed to arrive until tomorrow, but I'd finished my shift at the volunteer fire station early and figured I'd get a head start on opening up the cabin, maybe surprise Ryan with the rifle tonight instead of waiting. It was a Remington 700, the same model I'd been saving up for when I was his age. At 58, I might be retired from the fire department, but I could still outwork men half my age, and I wanted to make sure everything was perfect for our weekend together. The October sun was starting to dip behind the ridgeline as I pulled off the main road onto our private drive. That's when I saw Linda's Honda CR-V parked in front of the cabin. My wife wasn't supposed to be here until tomorrow either. We'd planned it that way. She had parent-teacher conferences all day Thursday, and I'd told her I'd handle the cabin prep myself. Then I saw the other vehicles. A sleek black Mercedes with Davidson County plates, and a white Ford Explorer with an official-looking seal on the door that made my stomach drop. Something was very wrong. I killed the engine halfway up the drive and sat there for a moment, my firefighter instincts kicking in. In my 30 years of emergency response, I'd learned to read scenes, to notice the details that didn't fit. The cabin lights were on, smoke from the chimney, but the blinds were drawn tight, which Linda never did. She loved the mountain view. And why would she drive up here a day early without telling me? I got out quietly, leaving the rifle in the truck. The gravel crunched under my boots as I approached, and I could hear voices inside. Male voices, confident and excited. And then I heard it. Linda's voice, but wrong, quiet, almost a whisper. The kind of voice someone uses when they're scared or confused. I moved to the side window, the one partially hidden by the overgrown rhododendrons that Linda kept asking me to trim. Through a gap in the blinds, I could see into our main room. Linda was sitting in her favorite chair by the fireplace, but she wasn't reading or relaxing like she usually did here. She was sitting rigid, her hands gripped together in her lap, her face pale. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. Standing near the dining table was my son, Ryan, and I almost didn't recognize him. He was pacing, gesturing with his phone, grinning. Next to him stood his wife, Brittany, designer purse on the table, perfectly manicured nails tapping on her phone screen. And then there was a man I'd never seen before, older, maybe 65, in a polo shirt with an official county emblem on it, holding an iPad and nodding as Ryan talked. I couldn't hear everything through the window, but I caught fragments. Ryan's voice, louder than the others. "I'm telling you, they're declining rapidly. Dad left the gas on last month. Mom called me 3 times in one day asking the same question." I felt my chest tighten. That was a lie, a complete lie. I'd never left the gas on. I was a fire chief for 3 decades. Safety was my religion, and Linda was as sharp as ever. Just last week, she'd corrected a cashier's math error that I hadn't even noticed. The man with the iPad spoke. "And you have documentation from their physician?" Ryan pulled papers from a folder on the table. "Right here, Dr. Morrison's assessment. Early-stage dementia for Mom, memory issues for Dad. They're getting dangerous to themselves." I felt like I'd been hit in the chest with a sledgehammer. Dr. Morrison? We'd been seeing Dr. Chen for 15 years. Who the hell was Dr. Morrison? Brittany chimed in, her voice sugary. "We're just trying to help them. They need supervised care before something terrible happens. This cabin is just too much for them to maintain." The official-looking man made notes on his iPad, and the property assessment came back at $420,000. "You're looking at a quick sale?" Ryan nodded eagerly. "There's a developer interested in the whole ridge. Cash offer, close in 30 days. We can use the proceeds to get Mom and Dad into a nice assisted living facility." My vision tunneled. The edges of my sight went red. They were trying to sell our cabin. The cabin my father built with his own hands in 1972. The cabin where Linda and I spent our honeymoon. where both our kids took their first steps, where I scattered my father's ashes in the creek behind the property, and they were doing it by declaring us incompetent. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. I needed to think. I needed to understand what was happening. This wasn't just greed. This was calculated. This was planned. I circled around to the back of the cabin, my mind racing. Ryan had been calling more frequently lately, asking about our finances, about the cabin's value, about whether we'd updated our will. I'd thought he was being responsible, showing concern. Linda had been so proud that he was finally taking an interest in family matters. God, we'd been so blind. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and texted my daughter Emily. "Where are you? Need you to call me as soon as possible. Emergency." Emily was a nurse at Vanderbilt. Solid, dependable, the complete opposite of her older brother. If anyone would know what to do, it would be her. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Emily's voice was tight with worry. "Dad? What's wrong? Are you okay?" "I'm at the cabin," I said, keeping my voice low. "Your mother's here, Ryan's here, and there's a county assessor." "Emily, they're trying to sell the cabin and put us in assisted living. They're claiming we have dementia." Silence on the other end. Then, "What?" I heard them through the window. "They have fake medical documents. They're trying to declare us incompetent." Emily's breath caught. "Oh my God. Dad, that's elder financial abuse. That's a felony." "I know," I said. "I need you to call the police. But not yet. I need to get your mother out of there first and gather evidence." "Dad, don't go in there alone. I'm a firefighter, Em. I've walked into burning buildings. I can handle my own son." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "Dad," her voice cracked, "how much does he owe?" That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" "Ryan's been weird lately. He stopped posting on social media about his investments. Brittany's been selling jewelry. I thought maybe they were just being more private, but Dad, I think he's in trouble. Deep trouble." Something clicked. The pieces started fitting together. Ryan's cryptocurrency consulting business that he'd been bragging about for 2 years. The Tesla, the designer clothes, the trips to Dubai and Monaco that he posted about constantly. And then, 6 months ago, the post stopped. The cockiness disappeared, and the phone calls to us increased. "I'll call the sheriff's department," Emily said. "But Dad, please don't do anything until they get there." "I'm going to get your mother," I said. "I'm not leaving her in there with them." I ended the call and looked at the back door of the cabin. I'd installed that lock myself. I had the key on my chain. I could walk right in, but I needed to know more first. I needed to understand the full scope of what they'd done. I crept back to the side window. The conversation had shifted. Linda was speaking now, her voice trembling. "But Ryan, honey, I don't understand. Your father and I are fine. We don't need—" "Mom, you're not thinking clearly," Ryan interrupted, his voice taking on a patronizing tone that made my blood boil. "Last month you asked me to explain how to use your email, twice." Because the interface updated, Linda protested weakly. It looked different. "See?" Ryan turned to the assessor. "This is what we're dealing with." She doesn't even remember asking the same question multiple times. The assessor looked uncomfortable but nodded. "Mr. Sullivan, I understand this is difficult, but if you have power of attorney and medical documentation, right here." Ryan pulled more papers from his folder. "Dad signed everything last month. He was having one of his good days, understood it was for their own protection. I almost kicked the door in right there. I'd never signed any power of attorney. Ever." Brittany spoke up again. "Once we get them settled into Oak Ridge Estates, they'll be so much happier. No more worrying about maintenance. No more dangerous drives up the mountain. It's really the most loving thing we can do. Oak Ridge Estates. I knew that place. $6,000 a month. For a shared room." The assessor was typing on his iPad. "And you're prepared to move forward with the conservatorship petition?" "Filing tomorrow," Ryan confirmed. "My attorney says it's pretty straightforward with the medical evidence and the POA. Should have it approved within 2 weeks." 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, They'd have legal control over everything Linda and I had worked for over 40 years. Our cabin, our home in Nashville, our retirement accounts, everything. I pulled back from the window, my hands shaking. Not from fear, from rage. I'd spent 30 years running into danger to save people. I'd pulled children from burning buildings. I'd performed CPR on heart attack victims. I'd talked teenagers off of bridges and carried elderly people out of flooded homes. And my own son, my firstborn child, the boy I'd taught to fish and hunt and build a fire, the kid who used to say he wanted to be just like his old man, was trying to rob us blind. I thought about the rifle in my truck. Not to use, God, no, but the symbolism of it burned. I'd bought it for him. A gift. A symbol of trust and tradition being passed down. What a fool I'd been. My phone buzzed. Emily, sheriff's deputy is en route. ETA 15 minutes. Please wait for them, Dad. 15 minutes. A lifetime. I texted back, getting Linda out now. We'll wait for police before confrontation. I didn't wait for her response. I moved to the back door, inserted my key as quietly as possible, and slipped inside. The cabin had that cedar smell it always had, mixed with wood smoke from the fireplace. It should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like walking into a crime scene. I could hear them clearly now. Still in the main room. I was in the back mudroom, separated by the kitchen. I moved silently, a skill you develop in the fire service when searching buildings for victims. Through the kitchen doorway, I could see Linda's profile. She was crying now, silent tears running down her face. That's when I knew this wasn't just a business arrangement to her. They'd manipulated her, scared her, broken her down until she was sitting there helpless, while her own son sold away her life. The conversation continued. The assessor, Mrs. Sullivan, do you understand that by signing these documents, you're agreeing that you need assistance managing your affairs? Linda's voice was barely audible. Ryan said it was just temporary. Until we're better. Mom, it's for your own good, Ryan said, and I could hear the impatience creeping into his voice now. Just sign here and here, then we can all relax. That's when I walked into the room. Don't sign anything, Linda. Forehead snapped toward me. Linda's face transformed from despair to shock to relief in the span of a heartbeat. Ryan's went from surprise to panic. Brittany actually gasped. The assessor just looked confused. David! Linda stood up so fast her chair rocked. Thank God. Dad! Ryan's voice was controlled, but I could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. What are you doing here? You're not supposed to arrive until tomorrow. Clearly, I said, walking slowly into the room. I kept my voice level, calm, the voice I used when talking to panicked accident victims. But I finished at the station early. Thought I'd surprise you. I looked at him directly. Seems like I'm the one who got the surprise. The assessor stood up, extending his hand. Mr. Sullivan, I'm Gary Hendricks from the county assessor's office. Your son requested an evaluation. Let me stop you right there, Mr. Hendricks. I didn't shake his hand. I don't know what my son has told you, but Linda and I are not declining. We don't have dementia. We don't need assisted living. And we sure as hell aren't selling this cabin. Ryan jumped in. Dad, you're being paranoid. We're trying to help. Help? I turned to him, and something in my expression made him take a step back. You want to help? By declaring me incompetent? By forging medical documents? By trying to steal the property my father built? We're not stealing anything, Brittany protested, her voice going shrill. We're trying to protect our investment. She stopped, realizing what she'd said. Your investment? Linda whispered. This is our home. I walked over to the table and looked at the papers spread there. Power of attorney documents with signatures that looked nothing like mine. A medical report from a Dr. Morrison that I'd never heard of. Property appraisal documents. A contract with something called Mountain View Development, LLC. I looked up at Ryan. How much do you owe? His face went white. I don't know what. How much? Silence. Then Brittany started crying, real tears, not the manipulative kind. It's not his fault, she sobbed. The market crashed. Everyone said crypto was safe. Brittany, shut up, Ryan hissed. But she couldn't stop now. We're down almost 200,000. The margin calls are due next week. If we don't pay, they'll take everything. So you decided to take everything from us instead? Linda's voice was steel now, cutting through Brittany's tears. Ryan's face crumbled. For a moment, he looked like that 8-year-old boy again, caught in a lie. Dad, I can explain. You have forged documents claiming I signed over power of attorney, I said slowly. You have fake medical records. You've conspired to defraud me and your mother out of our property. The only explanation I want to hear is the one you give to the sheriff's deputies, who are on their way here right now. Ryan's eyes went wide. You called the cops? I called your sister. She called the cops. Because unlike you, Emily knows the difference between family and felony. Mr. Hendricks was gathering his things with the speed of a man who realizes he's walked into a crime scene. I'm going to step outside. Actually, Mr. Hendricks, I need you to stay, I said. You're a witness to attempted elder financial abuse. The sheriff's going to want your statement. He froze, iPad clutched to his chest. Ryan was pacing now, his hands in his hair. Dad, please. You don't understand. These people I owe money to, they're dangerous. If I don't pay them, then you should have thought about that before you gambled away $200,000, I said. And you definitely should have thought about it before you tried to rob your own parents. We weren't robbing you, Ryan's voice cracked. We were going to take care of you, get you into a nice place. A $6,000 a month place that we'd be paying for with the money from selling our cabin, I finished. While you and Brittany used the rest to pay your gambling debts. That's not care, son. That's theft with extra steps. Linda had moved to stand beside me now, her hand gripping my arm. I could feel her shaking, but her voice was steady. Ryan, I asked you last month if you were okay. You said everything was fine. You said business was great. It was great, Ryan said desperately, until the Bitcoin crash. Mom, I had it all planned out. I was going to triple our investment. It wasn't your investment, I said. It was never your investment. It was our retirement, our life's work, and you were willing to destroy it to save yourself. The sound of vehicles pulling up outside stopped the conversation. Doors slamming. Radio chatter. Ryan looked at the door, then back at me. Dad, please, don't do this. I'm your son. That's what hurt the most. Because he was right. He was my son. The boy I'd taught to bait a hook and start a fire and be honest even when it was hard. The teenager I'd stayed up with all night when his girlfriend broke his heart. The young man I'd helped move into his first apartment. And he'd been willing to throw me and his mother into a nursing home and sell our memories for cash. I know you're my son, I said quietly. That's why this hurts so much. Because I raised you better than this. The knock on the door was professional, authoritative, sheriff's department. I opened the door to find 2 deputies, a man and a woman, both looking serious and alert. I'm David Sullivan. I believe my daughter Emily called you. The male deputy nodded. Yes, sir. She reported suspected elder financial abuse. Can you walk us through what's happening here? I gestured to the table. My son, Ryan, and his wife Brittany have forged power of attorney documents in my name. They've created fake medical records claiming my wife and I have dementia. They've been trying to force us to sell this property against our will to pay off Ryan's gambling debts. The female deputy looked at Mr. Hendricks. And you are? Gary Hendricks, County Assessor's Office. He sounded miserable. They told me the parents had already agreed to the sale. I had no idea. He's a witness, not a participant, I said. Ryan contacted him under false pretenses. The deputies looked at Ryan and Brittany. Ryan had gone pale. Brittany was openly crying now. The male deputy pulled out a notepad. Mr. Ryan Sullivan, I need you to stay right there while we sort this out. Ma'am, you too. He looked at me. Mr. Sullivan, do you have a copy of your actual power of attorney documents? I don't have a power of attorney, I said. I never signed one. The signature on those papers isn't mine. The deputy examined the documents on the table, then looked at my driver's license. Even I could see the signatures didn't match. And this Dr. Morrison who wrote the medical assessment? I've never heard of him, I said. Linda and I see Dr. Chen in Nashville. Have for 15 years. You can call him right now." The deputy looked at Ryan. "Is that correct? Your parents see a different physician?" Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. The assessment is real. Dr. Morrison is a specialist. That my wife and I never saw," I finished. "Because that document is fraudulent." The deputies exchanged a look. The female deputy spoke into her radio. "Dispatch, we're going to need a supervisor out here. Multiple counts of suspected elder fraud." That's when Ryan broke. He sank into a chair, his head in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "God, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what else to do. These guys I owe money to, they know where we live," they threatened Brittany. "They said if I didn't pay by next week." "So you decided to threaten us instead," Linda said. Her voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. "Your own parents." "We weren't threatening you," Brittany protested through her tears. "We were going to take care of you. In a nursing home we didn't need while you stole our home," Linda snapped. "That's not care. That's abuse." The male deputy was photographing the documents now. "Mr. Sullivan, Mrs. Sullivan, has anyone physically harmed you or threatened you?" "Just emotionally," I said. "And financially, if we hadn't caught it in time. We need to ask, do either of you want to press charges?" I looked at Linda. Her eyes were red, but they were clear. She looked at our son, her firstborn, the baby she'd labored 23 hours to bring into the world, and I saw her heart break in real time. Then she nodded. "Yes." Ryan's head snapped up. "Mom, you need help, Ryan," Linda said, her voice shaking. "Real help. The kind we can't give you. You've crossed a line that I never thought you'd cross. And if we don't hold you accountable now, you'll just do it to someone else. Maybe to us again when we really are too old to fight back." The deputy nodded. "Ma'am, I understand this is difficult. We'll need both of you to come to the station tomorrow to give full statements." He turned to Ryan. "Mr. Sullivan, you're under arrest for attempted elder financial abuse, forgery, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." The rest happened in a blur. Ryan being handcuffed. Brittany screaming that this wasn't fair, that we were ruining their lives. Mr. Hendricks giving his statement in a shaky voice. The deputies taking photos of everything, bagging evidence. And then they were gone. Ryan in the back of one cruiser, Brittany following behind in her Mercedes, Mr. Hendricks in his Explorer. Linda and I stood in the doorway of our cabin, watching the taillights disappear down the mountain road. The sun had fully set now. The forest around us was dark and quiet, except for the crickets. "We just had our son arrested," Linda said softly. "I know. He tried to steal our home. I know. I don't know if I can forgive him." I put my arm around her shoulders. "I don't know if I can either." We stood there for a long time, holding each other in the doorway of the cabin my father built. The cabin where we'd raised our children to value honesty and family, and doing the right thing even when it was hard. Somewhere along the way, we'd failed. Or Ryan had failed. Or maybe the world had failed, offering get-rich-quick schemes and easy money, and the illusion that you could get something for nothing. But we'd stopped it. That's what mattered. We'd stopped it before it went too far. My phone rang. "Emily." "Dad? The sheriff's department called me? Are you and Mom okay?" "We're okay, sweetheart. I'm coming up there. I'm leaving Nashville right now." It's a 4-hour drive. I don't care. I'm not leaving you two alone tonight." I looked at Linda. She nodded. "Okay," I said. "Drive safe. We'll be here." "I love you both," Emily said, and I could hear that she was crying. "We love you too, honey." After I hung up, Linda said, "We're not going to be able to hunt this weekend." "No," I agreed. "I guess not. What are we going to do?" "We're going to wait for Emily. We're going to call Dr. Chen tomorrow and get official documentation that we're both perfectly healthy. We're going to call our lawyer and make sure our estate is ironclad. We're going to change our locks and our passwords and our accounts. And then we're going to figure out if there's anything left to salvage with Ryan. But that's going to be on him, not us." Linda leaned her head on my shoulder. "He's sick, David. Addiction is a disease." "I know. And if he wants help, we'll help him get treatment. But he's going to have to face consequences first. Real consequences." We went back inside. Linda started a pot of coffee while I built up the fire. Normal things, familiar things. The kind of things you do when your world has just tilted on its axis and you need to find solid ground again. Around midnight, Emily's headlights swept across the windows. She came through the door and immediately wrapped us both in a fierce hug. "Tell me everything," she said. So we did. We sat by the fire and told her the whole story. Ryan's lies, the fake documents, the confrontation, the arrest. Emily cried. So did Linda. I didn't, but I felt like it. I knew something was wrong, Emily said, but I never thought, God, I never thought he'd do something like this. Neither did we, I said. What happens now? Legally, I mean. We give our statements tomorrow. The district attorney will decide whether to prosecute. Given that we have forged documents, and Ryan confessed to the deputies, I'd say it's pretty likely. He could go to prison, Emily said softly. He could, I agreed. And maybe he should. But his lawyer will probably work out a deal. First offense, family situation, cooperation, probably probation, and restitution. And addiction treatment? Linda added firmly. That has to be part of it. He needs help. Emily looked at her. After what he tried to do, you still want to help him? He's my son, Linda said simply. I'm furious at him. I'm hurt. I don't know if I'll ever trust him again, but I still love him. And if he's willing to do the work to get better, I'm willing to be there for that. From a distance, with very clear boundaries. I didn't say anything. I wasn't sure I was there yet. I was still too angry. Emily stayed for 3 days. We didn't hunt. We didn't fish. Instead, we went to the sheriff's department and gave our statements. We met with our attorney and created an ironclad trust with dual signatures required for any changes. We called Dr. Chen and got formal letters confirming our mental competency. We changed every password, every account access, every lock on every door. We fortified our lives against our own son. On the 3rd day, Ryan's lawyer called. He wanted to discuss a deal. Ryan would plead guilty to attempted elder financial abuse. He'd enter a residential addiction treatment program. He'd pay restitution over time. In exchange, the state would recommend probation instead of prison time. Linda said yes, immediately. I made them add a clause. No contact for at least 2 years unless we initiated it. Ryan would have to earn his way back into our lives, if that was even possible. The lawyer agreed. A week later, we were back in Nashville. Normal life resumed, but it wasn't normal anymore. We were jumpier, more suspicious. We noticed every strange phone call, every unexpected visitor, every request for information. Linda went to therapy. So did I, eventually. Not just for what Ryan had done, but for what it represented. The fundamental betrayal of trust. The recognition that the people you love most can hurt you deepest. The reality that aging in America means being vulnerable to exploitation even from your own children. Emily came by twice a week. She helped us set up monitoring on our credit reports. She became our designated emergency contact for everything. She was the child we could trust, and that meant something. 3 months after that night at the cabin, I got a letter from Ryan. It came from the treatment facility. 4 pages, handwritten. He told me about his gambling addiction, how it started small, 100 here, 1,000 there, how he'd won big a few times and convinced himself he was smart, not lucky, how he'd lost everything and borrowed more, how the debt had snowballed until he was drowning. He told me about Brittany pressuring him, their lifestyle always just out of reach, trying to keep up with her influencer friends, how she'd left him the week after his arrest, filed for divorce, taken everything that wasn't seized. He told me he'd hit rock bottom in a jail cell, looking at 5 years in prison and realizing he'd destroyed his relationship with his parents for money he'd already lost. He told me he was sorry. Over and over. He was sorry. The letter ended. Dad, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know I broke something that can never be fully repaired. But I want you to know I'm going to spend the rest of my life being better. Not for you or Mom, for me. Because the person I became is someone I don't even recognize. I became the kind of man you spent your whole life fighting against. Someone who preys on the vulnerable and justifies it by calling it necessity. I'm so ashamed. I understand if you never want to see me again, but I hope someday you'll let me show you that I can be better than the worst thing I've ever done. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry. I forgot what that means. I read that letter 3 times. Then I showed it to Linda. What do you think? She asked. I think he means it, I said. Right now, at least. Whether he means it when life gets hard again, when he's tempted again, when things don't go his way, that's the question. Do you want to write back? I thought about it for a long time. Not yet, I said finally. Maybe in a few months, after he's had more time and treatment, after he's proven he can actually do the work. Linda nodded. That's fair. 2 years passed. Ryan completed his treatment program. He moved to a sober living house in Chattanooga. He got a job as a laborer in construction. Hard, honest work that paid poorly, but kept him busy. He started attending AA meetings. He paid off his restitution debt in small installments, $50 a week. He didn't contact us. He respected the boundaries we'd set, and somehow that respect meant more than any apology could have. Emily reported back to us occasionally. Ryan was doing well, staying sober, living simply, working on himself. Last month, on what would have been Columbus Day weekend, Linda said, I think I want to see him. I looked at her. Are you sure? No, she admitted. But I've been thinking about what you always say, that everyone deserves a chance to earn their way back. You gave second chances to so many people in your career. Addicts who started fires, teenagers who made stupid choices. You always said people could change if they wanted it badly enough. This is different. This was my son. Exactly. Which means if anyone deserves the chance to show he's changed, it's him. We don't have to trust him. We don't have to give him access to our finances or our property or our private information. But maybe we can have coffee, in public, and see. So we did. We met Ryan at a diner in Murfreesboro, halfway between our home and his, neutral territory. He looked different, thinner, no designer clothes, just jeans and a work shirt with Morrison Construction, embroidered on the pocket. His hands were calloused. His eyes were clear. He didn't try to hug us. He just said, "Thank you for meeting me." We talked for 2 hours, about his treatment, his sobriety, his job, his amends process. He'd written apology letters to dozens of people he'd wronged. He'd paid back debts. He was slowly rebuilding his life from nothing. At the end, he said, I know I can't undo what I did, and I know saying sorry doesn't fix it, but I want you to know that I think about what I almost did every single day. It keeps me sober, because I never want to be that person again. Good, I said. Stay that person. We didn't make plans to meet again, but we didn't rule it out either. Later, driving home, Linda said, What do you think? I think he's trying, I said. I think he's doing the work, but I don't know if I can ever fully trust him again. That's okay, Linda said. Trust isn't an all-or-nothing thing. We can trust him with coffee. Maybe someday we can trust him with more. Maybe, I agreed. Someday. We went back to the cabin last fall, just the 2 of us. We'd installed a security system, changed the locks 3 times, put the property in an irrevocable trust, built a fortress around the place my father made with his hands. But we still went, because Ryan hadn't stolen that from us. He'd tried, but he'd failed. The cabin was still ours. Our memories were still ours. Our life together was still ours. I stood on the porch at sunset, looking out at the ridge where my father used to take me hunting, where I'd taken Ryan, where I'd hoped to take grandchildren someday, though that seemed less certain now. Linda came out and stood beside me, her hand in mine. You know what I learned? I said. What? That you can't protect yourself from being hurt by the people you love. Not really. You can set boundaries and safeguards and legal protections, but at the end of the day, loving someone means being vulnerable to them. That's a depressing lesson, Linda said. Maybe. But there's more. I also learned that you're tougher than you think, that you can survive betrayal, that you can set boundaries without cutting people off entirely, that justice and compassion can coexist, and that the people who really love you, like Emily, will prove it when things get hard. And Ryan? Ryan is trying to prove it now, Whether he succeeds or not, that's up to him. We stood there as the sun dropped behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The same sunset my father had watched. The same one I'd watched with my children when they were small. The same one I'd watch for years to come, in the cabin that was still ours, with the wife I still loved, in the life we'd fought to protect. Because in the end, that's what matters. Not what people try to take from you, but what you refuse to give up. And we'd refused to give up. We'd fought back. We'd protected ourselves. We'd drawn boundaries. We'd demanded accountability. And we'd survived with our dignity intact, our love still strong, and our eyes wide open to the reality that trust is precious because it can be so easily broken. But also that it's worth the risk. Because without trust, without love, without vulnerability, we're not really living at all. We're just protecting what we have and calling it a life. I'd rather be hurt by loving too much than hurt by loving too little. Even now. Even after everything. That's the lesson I took from that terrible night. Not that people will betray you, but that you can survive betrayal and still choose love. Carefully. With boundaries. With your eyes open. But still love. Because that's what makes us human. That's what makes us more than the worst thing we've ever done. And that's what I hope Ryan is learning too.